Now it's time for those speakers, the founders that are on the call to share some insights into the climate sector and what kind of startups can emerge out of it. So going in first is Roshan Miranda, founder of Bintix, and I will allow him to introduce himself and the company and also give us some insights on climate sector. Over to you, Roshan.
Oh, thanks, Anisha. It's fantastic to be part of this. And I did not know all the elements of the program. And now, after having heard it, I wish I had this opportunity. I think it's something for everybody to grab, with both arms. Coming to what we do, I think my name says I was one of the Ashrits when I joined. I did not know. So I had to turn on my video and then figure out that, okay, this is me. And then I was, wrongly named and I changed my name. As you can see, I think it's rightly mentioned here, Roshan Miranda, the founder of Bintix. I'll tell you why we started Bintix. When we look at waste, I think Siddharth is going to talk next as well. I'm sure he has amazing things to say. We both come from the similar sector. When you look at waste, we looked at it very differently and then saw, this needs to be solved. Then what is the problem today? And then we realized that the problem is a certain type of plastic, which means you have flexible plastic, your chips packet, chocolate wrappers. Those are the problem plastics which end up in the environment. Because all the other rigid plastics, which are bottles like shampoo bottle, water bottle, all of them get recycled really well in India. And I don't know if you know this, India does amazingly well in recycling its waste. One of the top countries to do so. But it's the non-recyclable element which is a challenge. And when we look at how to solve that problem, we realize that it's a value system that it creates, right? It has no value, which is why it doesn't get picked up. And therefore, waste pickers don't find value in it, who are the champions of making India recycle really well. They don't find value in it, so it doesn't get picked up. Therefore, it creates a collection bias. It remains on the streets of India until somebody, until a government picks it up, if that happens, or it festers on the streets. When we're trying to see how to solve that problem, we realize that if we look at waste as a data source, then if we look at it very differently, means every piece of plastic we get tells us some story about who consumed it, why was it consumed, and what is it doing in terms of the competition. So we look at waste as a source of the market data. We think that it is a reflection of what society consumes. And therefore, if you understand waste, you can understand consumption behaviors and consumption habits. And that's the data we build from waste. Therefore, every piece of data we build is a waste piece removed from the planet, and in turn is highly valued because it's a piece of data. And we build this market data and then we sell it to various clients. So we see ourselves as a data analytics company more than the waste management company. But waste becomes the absolute source or the truth of the data. All the way data comes from waste. And what data does is it provides a revenue so that we can manage the waste really well. Use all the technology we want, make sure it is formal, make sure it is rightly handled, make sure our customers see the waste differently, and then segregate the waste into all that. So that's about what we do. We generate a lot of data, and data analytics is what we do. Pretty much any FMCG company you can think of is our client for the data element of it. While at the same time, we make sure that all different types of waste coming from 7 cities across India, from 40,000 homes, are really well recycled and handled well. That's what we do as a company.
Thanks, Roshan. So I think I'll just read out the questions for you.
Oh, please.
Yeah. So I think if you could just shed some light on what does climate tech actually mean, because there's this huge misconception that climate tech means something really fancy, or then it just means like a non-for-profit. So can you tell us in simple words, what does climate tech actually mean?
Oh, for me, it's if you can use any technology to solve climate problems, that's climate tech. It can be starting from building a simple app to do certain things more efficiently, or connecting people so that there's climate action. For example, if you were building an app to bring people together to protest against the big issue that is in Delhi today, I would call it climate tech. It's something that you're doing for the climate. Bringing awareness could be one element of it. You're acting on it yourself. It could be how to connect farms which may be burning and to give them different solutions. to how to stop burning of waste so that you're averting it. Use of any technology here to solve a climate problem is climate tech. I truly believe that waste at least is out of is prime time ready to be a for-profit sector, and I truly believe, and that's why we started Bintix as a for-profit entity, and other company that I co-founded, SusVentures India, is also a for-profit entity. While I say that, we do also believe that NGOs have a place as well, because certain things cannot be done by for-profit entities. They may not push certain boundaries because it's not in the commercial interest. Making policies, pushing on the policies, pushing on awareness sessions to an extent may not be. So NGOs do have a place, but climate tech to me is at least in the waste sector, we are prime time ready to be a for-profit entity, and anything you work on climate using technology should be climate tech. Any startup in climate space should be a climate tech.
So just one last question before I open it up for Q&A for the rest of the students as well. So you've studied pharma, but then now you're a climate entrepreneur. So how did that transition happen? And can you encourage some of these students on how they can find the climate problem that they want to solve for?
Yeah, I always tell people that I wandered everywhere and until I found my place, which is waste. And finally I found it, and that's where I belong. Which can be true to you, but I'm supremely thrilled that some of you are just getting out of college and then you get to work on climate, which might be what you will work on eventually. It's just, I'm envious of all you guys can do. But essentially, I think what matters to you is why should you do this is because it could be true when you pick what you want to work on, right? It should connect with you. It should matter to you. That purpose should resonate with you. As long as that resonates with you, then you'll pick that up and put your heart and soul into it. And then if you solve a problem for the world, and automatically revenues flow in, and that will become an amazing company. So I think if it resonates with you, it matters to you, and if it's touching, it matters. It actually speaks to your heart. I say pick that up and then do it. That's exactly what happened with me. It was an amazing way to have an environmental impact, to see waste not going to environment, also to make sure that it recycles. You don't want to keep creating materials, not be circular. That was one element, and the other element was I got to work with waste pickers, which was important to me. Need not be something else could be to you guys, but make sure that it resonates with you and gives you the purpose. That's how I landed up.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. So I think we can now open the room for Q&A for Roshan. Anyone who wants to ask a question, please raise your hands up. We will invite you to speak. We already have one message on the chat, so I'll just read that out until someone else can ask a question. What can we build in climate tech coming from a non-technical, no deep tech product background?
Anything. I don't come from a tech background. I don't. I studied pharmacy because I wanted to be a drug scientist, drug discovery scientist. I did my PhD in genetics. I can code because I did a lot of data analytics, but then I don't come from a tech background at all. It's the idea and the execution that matters. You can have plenty of other coders as your co-founders, or you can hire people to code things. You need not be technical in terms of building it. As long as you have a problem that you want to solve, you will find a way to do it. Absolutely anything is my answer, because I don't come from a tech background myself.
That's some awesome advice. Anyone else who has a question for Roshan? If not, we can maybe keep it at the end as well if you don't immediately have one.
Sure, I'm around. Feel free to ask me questions later too.
Okay. Thank you so much, Roshan, for your wonderful insights. We'll catch you around towards the end of the session as well again. So we also have Siddhart from Kabadiwalla Connect on the call with us, and he will be sharing his experience and insights on climate sector as well. So over to you, Siddhart. Thank you so much for doing this.
Sure. Thanks, Anisha. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. So just wanted to start out by recognizing SusMafia. This is a very cool platform. It's great to see things like this happen. I want to also recognize BITS Pilani. I was in a conference with in BITS Design School recently, which they had just opened, and I think there was a founder member there who's on the board, and it kind of was explaining the difference between IIT and BITS, and how IIT really built a workforce to go to the US and be these amazing professionals, whereas BITS really is focusing on building like competency in India. And so the fact that this narrative of climate and sustainability, I mean, it's really exciting. It gives me shivers to see what kind of an institution like BITS is capable of when they do something like this. And I mean, just the fact that there are formal routes for students to apply for money and things like that. We didn't really have that. I think Roshan, I think he's my senior. In fact, Waste Ventures is a very old organization in waste management, one of the first. So he must have some incredible stories of breaking a glass ceiling, I think. Really, yeah. I mean, Waste Ventures has been one of the first where people, when you look at it and say, what can I do in waste management? Waste Ventures will turn up. And so I think that I think that the fact that BITS is coming in this formal way, it's really amazing. And then of course, yeah, Roshan, it's great to hear your perspective. There's a lot of depth in everything that you're saying about it doesn't really matter how you started. I mirror that in a very strong way. It's kind of you Forrest Gump your way into your position, and wanting to create impact. Maybe we should start there. I think just to lay the foundation, I think for you guys is when you're studying, I think there's a real pressure on what you're going to do with your life. And I mean, guys like us, we're kind of like, yeah, like we're in waste management, here the field is open for you guys. And so if you're looking to maximize your money and, your financial situation is probably the lead indicator of why you get into this. So I feel like if you have one thing I want to see, to be very honest, is that you have to wait more. It's a tougher market. It's a more niche market. There's, like it's not healthcare. It's not like social media, whatever those kind of things are. So um, when you take waste, it's very niche. So the passion, I think, of everybody who's in waste is quite high. But it feels like something like, especially when we started, 15 years ago, when I was trying to figure out how to get into waste. I was always passionate about waste because I grew up in Chennai. We had, like the beaches were unclean. So I was always fascinated, like, why is all this plastic and stuff coming into our beaches? And that was the real sticking. I could never get it out of my head. When I was doing college and stuff, we used to organize beach cleanups every weekend. Facebook had just come out, so we got like 100 members to come. Like it was you're finding your way through that passion. But then when it came to studying, doing work and stuff, I went that whole data science route. So I did a master's in environment and sustainability. I got into GIS, remote sensing. Like that was my competency, you could say. That was my core skill set. And I started using that in the development sector. So I was working, it kept me close to various issues, like that is, I guess, on the ground. And I always liked waste, so I would try to get waste projects. But my core kind of competency, I worked in the development sector for about 6 years. I worked with IIT Madras, they're an Indo-German Center for Sustainability. I was with IFMR in Chennai, which is doing some very interesting work on microfinance, but also development. I was in Bangalore, they have the Indian Institute of Human Settlement. So I was kind of in that ecosystem, really trying to hone my data science skill. And so I would be affiliated to various projects that needed somebody like me who knew how to collect spatial data, visualize maps. It was kind of that kind of starting point. And so I was able to start Kabadiwalla Connect, from a social enterprise perspective, because I was writing a lot of grants. And I happened to win this grant from the World Economic Forum, so $50,000 Swiss franc grant that allowed the starting point of my company, which was to map these different aggregators active in the city. So I guess I also come along with Roshan, like a lot of my like the importance of data is really critical. It's like my bread and butter, you could say. And so spatial data, essentially mapping aggregators, assigning data to them, like, what volume, what do they pick up, building these material flow maps. This was really the starting point of the work that I got to do when I was applying for grants. And then ultimately, commercial clients came as well, interested in how do they manage their feedstock for their recycling systems, like, okay, you invest in a recycling plant, but then super important to that recycling plant is continuous feedstock supply. So I've met a lot of founders who have built interesting recycling technologies or have invested in recycling technologies, but they don't have the feedstock. And the feedstock is equally important. Guaranteeing quality, guaranteeing volume is critical to any continuous supply system. And so really, Kabadiwalla Connect then started building into this supply chain requirement, but on the collection side, on the feedstock side. And yes, plastics is very exciting, but from our perspective, we really see these informal aggregators, Kabadiwallas, in Tamil they call Kailan Kades, in Indonesia they're called Lapaks. They have these aggregators in Hong Kong. We have a project there. So we believe in the power of these aggregators to become, they already are doing so much collection. You know, PET is like at a very high level, 90% collected and things like that. There's issues with health and safety, but they are an amazing decentralized supply chain collection system that you can leverage for different material. And so more and more our projects now have been with large, like, you know, we're incubated within Shell, for example, Shell Game Changer, and they are looking at, they are investing in, you know, they're really trying to decarbonize their energy supply chain. And so everything is important to them, biogas, chemical recycling. It's like this energy transition is the key path to an energy transition for Shell is to invest in energy producing recycling technology. So not incineration, not sending low value plastic to the cement industry and like burning it, but rather say sending low value plastic and making oil at the same quality that they can send into their fractors in Singapore, which can do like 5 million tons a year, you know. So they are looking at all of these key things. And the big question they have in the global south, so it's not just an India problem, is how do you collect material? You know, like in France, for example, let's say a recycling company, they will go to the municipality and say, listen, I need 1,000 tons. And they'll build this deal and they'll do all of these things that the market is very good at to manage that collection requirement, pricing, blah, blah, blah. Here, the municipality is not the one you negotiate the deal with for your feedstock. It's your informal material recovery facility or your formal material recovery facility. So how do you navigate that landscape is going in the global south is going to be critical for recycling in the global south. And we're very good, like PET, for example, phenomenally collected. We collect it at a pricing rate that beats like Europe out of the water. Like when you look at the cost to their government on the way they do centralized collection and these bins and all, where we could potentially be if we believed in the scrap shop and in their ability to collect waste for us. I think we're solving a key issue, which is the cost of waste collection for big cities, towns, things like that. So yeah, so that's the space that Kabadiwalla Connect operates in. We're for-profit social enterprise. So the founder's vision of what social is super important in this case. And for us, it's we will only take projects that can prove that it will result in the rapid integration of the informal sector, waste pickers, small scrap shops, larger pre-processing facilities. And so we always try to come up with that always builds that. And so it's been a really interesting journey. Yeah, but congrats. I just the fact that you've chosen this class, you're choosing this elective and you're interested about it, that's good for you folks. And if that drive to like find the meaning of why you're making money matters to you, like, you know, let's say 6 hours or 8 hours every week, 6 days a week, whatever it may be, and you want to work more than that, you have that drive and you want to make meaning, then yeah, this kind of stuff really matters.
Thank you so much, Siddharth, for that amazing inspiration. So we have a question for you. Is making a profitable business in this sector difficult, as most people think that it is government's job to solve this problem on a big level?
Super difficult. It's super difficult. Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. So that is about the waste management sector. So this is for both Roshan and Siddharth. What are the opportunities that you see in the climate sector in terms of like the gaps and where the students should start looking to actually find the problem statements and build valuable startups?
No, Roshan, please go ahead.
No, if I start, I wanna. This is the first time I'm meeting Siddharth, and I'm a fan of his work, and you know, he's very kind with his words. Thank you, Siddharth. Thanks for that, and I'm really big fan of your work, and fantastic to meet you here. And you know, I hope to interact more often with you. That's fantastic. On the other hand, I think, as I said, uh, I mean, Professor Acharya said, what are the segments which are critical, right? There is, of course, energy, there is mobility, there is, of course, you can go to circularity in terms of plastic, whatever. But at the end, I think what should matter is what appeals to you. And where do you find comfort zone in solving that problem, right? I mean, you don't want to start completely alien because, maybe you will be stuck a little bit more. So doesn't matter how difficult the problem is. I think Siddharth has told you that waste is not an easy sector to work with. It's very difficult. But if you find comfort in solving that problem, and if you find the purpose there, go for it. You will make it work. I would start from there rather than what is the most difficult segment. Go there because because it also gives you a lot of funding, it also gives you a lot of focus, a lot of resources availability and all that. That's fantastic. But at the same time, also see if it appeals to you. Is that something that makes you happy because you're solving that big problem? And also do you have some level of comfort in solving that problem? Those are the things I would say. Siddharth, you can take it up.
No, yeah, I just would like to qualify my statement. I'm making a blanket statement on, starting a business in climate tech is tough and tougher. Like being an entrepreneur means you have this appetite for risk taking, as well as you have an honest impression of your social situation at that point. You know what I mean? Like if you have this big loan, or if you have this, or if you have that, like you always want to, like, being an entrepreneur is an extremely risky proposition. And so you have to feel that you're able to take that leap, because you can't be half and half. Like that is my kind of driving point here. It's super hard. Like it's wanting to be a tennis player, a professional tennis player, or like, like you are elevating yourself, and entrepreneurship is an elevating kind of thing for sure. So you, like Roshan says, the passion is super important. Like if your passion is making money, yeah, you can do climate tech, because if you find the right thing, let's say blockchain, like a blockchain based something, you can find the right term and raise money and make money for yourself and stuff. But the thing that would drive you, I think, to again come back to this point of like, how do you affect change in the global south? How do you work on Delhi's air quality, or these kind of things? And then it focuses you to be solution oriented. And so to be solution oriented means you have the passion. So like you have to tell us what your passion is. Like I would say, like, for example, I'm looking at this comment saying, can you give more information about the clean energy business opportunity? Massive business opportunity. I think the professor said it, Professor Arya said it really well. You got the technologies, you got the decarbonization, you got this, you got that. But from your perspective, what does it mean? It really, you should go out and find it. What's your niche there is something that the entrepreneur has to, you have to find your product market fit there. Like I think, and it has to be based on a comfort thing that you have. So based on your comfort and based on what you see, if you see an opportunity and then you can validate in the market if that's an exciting idea, then it's super exciting. And it could be super meaningful for Indian society in the global south, where, we're seeing the effects of climate change. This is very clear. I just want to say, like, I was in a panel recently where somebody was asking me questions why youth in Sweden were so disengaged from the climate discussions. Probably because Sweden's not seeing the effects of climate change. Still super beautiful there, like, whereas in Chennai, we've had like 3 floods in the last 7 years. You know what I mean? So yeah, so look around you for the problems. They're all in your face, and find your niche, and always validate that feeling that you have of, how can fix the problem in the market, and you're on your way to be an entrepreneur.
Thanks for that response. So I think I'll take this one question, which because it's super relevant to both of you over here. What are the gaps still prevalent in the waste sector that we as engineers can solve for through developing technologies?
Go, Siddharth. I think you should go on this. I'm happy to take it, but you can go first.
Yeah, it's something I'm trying to find. I just want to mention one big one, and I'm trying to find the right. I think for me, like if I had to look at the issue with waste management in India, is like we have some amazing things happening locally, like the way we collect waste, this decentralized thing, the scrap shop. But when you look at the technology support that they have, or the like the things that they can access, it's still very limited. So, for example, there's no serious effort on a low volume baler, like all these important technologies that could support like the conditions at scrap shops and things. A lot of the technology is in Europe. A lot of the innovation around technology and like engineering systems that are required for like supply chain is people are buying stuff from Germany, people are buying stuff from, and it's built for their ecosystem and their market. So like engineering has not really like that localization effect on our waste management system or anything is not there yet, and I think that it's a key engineering problem to solve. Like I'll give you a very simple example. Like the most validated recycling technologies are ones that can do 10,000 to 15,000 tons a year of material X, material Y. These are the most validated ones. These are ones the billion-dollar companies are okay to put on their Excel sheet for a 5-year or 8-year investment. These are things that get basically funded. And this is all based on European cities and their examples of how they recycle. We don't have any localized solutions for high quality engineering that's actually a big, that has a pathway. And so I think that if you folks can solve these kind of very simple questions, like how can I make the quality of bales better in a baler, like and also that's relevant to them. Maybe you need a low energy baler, like, so you need that localization effect that can improve the quality of the product as well as health and safety standards is really missing, and it's also missing from the books. So if you had to have that, then what's the ecosystem around that has trust to invest in it and grow it and scale it? So I think that's really a key thing that could be looked at.
I really love what Siddharth said. I think I don't think I could have framed it better than him, or as good as him. But one suggestion I have for people who are looking at any technology is that be solution oriented. I think Siddharth said this already in the previous question. I'm just reiterating it in context of this question. If it requires a baling machine to be built, please go ahead and build it. But at the end, that may not be the complete solution to a scrap dealer. He might need something else being built so that the baler, whatever he has, works in the whole context. Be solution oriented, not just be kind of, this is the technology I know, so let me build this. Go beyond that and then see if you can. I always tell people that there's enough knowledge in the waste space, but there's not enough solutions. Precisely going back to what Siddharth is saying, right? There is enough know-how on how to compress a bale in Germany and at that scale, right? I mean, we have a lot of balers in India too, which are all India made. But I have to have at least 2 tons a day for me to bale that. If I'm a Kabadiwalla sitting and collecting only 100 kgs, no, it doesn't work, and I can't add that value. So I think be solution oriented so that it goes just not to one thing, but it addresses the largest segment of the problem that guy must be facing. So be consumer client oriented in some sense when you build it. But I love what Siddharth said. I think that's possibly the most difficult technology problem we face today. No, not enough contextualization.
And just to add, I mean, I think that's why this course, the pedagogy behind this course is so important, because like, how do you find the problem? How do you validate that it's actually a problem? These are all important skill sets. I didn't have any of this stuff, it's kind of forced up my way into it. But
Yeah.
but I think that's where maybe, I think these are all really amazing things to study. And there's a lot of frameworks for all of this stuff. Like I'm sure SusMafia and the folks at BITS are going to be taking you through some of these things. But I think, yeah, like it's so important to frame the problem. Like the way you come at the solution and is so important. And again, I think that climate tech is super exciting. It's a space, but you have to be generally you have to be risk taking to want to take this. And also, I think be super connected to a particular issue that you want to like go down.
Thanks both of you for that wonderful response. So I think there's a time for one more question before we move ahead with the final segment, which is learning more about the course structure and also the team behind it. And Professor Rajiv will be introducing us to the whole course. So anyone with any questions? Yeah, sorry, I think there's someone speaking.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible now.
Hi Siddharth, hi Roshan. I had one very specific question. So this is something I had observed like online, where in Germany they have these machines right in front of supermarkets, where if you take a bottle, you have to like pay a certain amount. And when you come back to the supermarket and you return the bottle, you just put it back into that recycling machine and it pays you that amount back. So this makes sure that people don't like dump this in the bins instead. So like first of all, so what happened was this is again in the Europe. Like it's not happening here, but I observed this during our fest. So we have like Red Bull as a sponsor. We have a lot of Coca-Cola. We have a lot of like Sting bottles that are thrown around very recklessly. And at the end of the 3-day fest, like we just had our cultural fest where we have so many people coming from so many places, and they're continuously consuming all these carbonated drinks which are sold in plastic bottles and these really tiny 20 rupees bottles. So, and at the end of those 3 days, there is this waste collection facility people who come and they collect everything and they go. So and it's thrown around everywhere recklessly and it's too much that is consumed. So if we could somehow have like that kind of system in a fest where people can, instead of throwing away the bottle, put it directly for recycling, uh, and it's easy, like it's convenient for them as well. So then I feel like because everybody's responsible, everybody's educated, they just don't know that when you like throw away these bottles, it becomes very difficult to recycle them because you have to segregate it out from the wet waste first as well.
Yeah, maybe I'm very interested in Roshan's thing. So you're describing a deposit return scheme, DRS, and so yeah, I'm fascinated to hear Roshan's experience or thoughts about DRS in India.
Oh no, I think there is somebody who's already trying this in Goa. There is some work that has already happened in Uttarakhand to an extent on deposit refund system. It's an amazing system, frankly. What it does is it incentivizes people to not litter, but then earn money. It has to be big enough so that they feel like it's worth their time to go to a place where the refund can happen, and so on. But then there are challenges in India about how do we make sure that it is Indianized in certain ways. For example, if you're selling a Parle-G biscuit of 5 rupees, can that person who is buying it, can he afford 5 more rupees to be deposited as a system so that he gets it and come back? Does he have enough money to do that? Is the first question that everybody would ask, because mostly the bottom of the pyramid will not be able to afford that extra money they would have to pay to be sustainable. Although it comes back, then there's a cycle, right? It becomes like a working capital situation on a daily basis for this guy, even if he wants to eat a 5 rupee biscuit packet. So there are limitations around that, as well as some practical difficulties on how do you make sure that there is no plundering of plastic and then takes away and then it just comes back in the system. How do you make sure that it's all unique QR coding has to be done? These are all the systems that they've solved, but we have to contextualize it really well. But I think this is an amazing project for you guys to take up in your college fest, maybe. Why don't you have the system of pay 5 rupees more for every Coke bottle, which is 20 rupees now, 25 rupees, but then when you come back, I'll give you 5 rupees back.
Yeah, you lose all your friends. That's the only caveat.
See if you can build that to a local context and make it work. I know a big entrepreneur who believes that deposit refund system is the best way to go ahead, but it has its own challenges, right? In what segment for all plastics or maybe for all glasses? What if it breaks? Do they lose value? There's a lot of things that people have to work with for Indian context, but I think it's something that definitely can be experimented on. But Siddharth, you can answer that as well.
No, I think like the point that you made about like, this is a great question. And you add the question of, hey, let me go and understand this problem and let me localize something, come with this idea of localization and you have something. Like I was immediately thinking of pitching, hey, what if you connect the bottle collection to the UPI system? You build some apps that integrate. And so you piggyback off the UPI. I mean, that's a fascinating. It's probably really complex to build something like that and get it. But I think, yeah, the framework is there. So again, from our perspectives in waste, how that relates to climate tech is all of these open questions that need solving. And I think that it's such an amazing landscape. These are the kind of questions I think that's going to be really helpful to find, yeah, why can't we do that for our cultural festival? And what does that mean for the broader, system? Is there a product out? Can I make money doing this? Yeah, for sure.
Got it. So I hope that answers your question, and we are looking forward to seeing some DRS systems at BITS Pilani very soon. But yeah, thank you so much, Siddharth and Roshan, for this wonderful, wonderful panel session. We're really excited to see what students make out of it.